What is most important for healing? Is it being the most theological in the world? No. Is it being without sin? No. Is it by keeping laws? No. It's one thing. And by the way, when Zane and Tony figured this thing out, their life changed. If you believe in the gospel, then you believe in healing. The gospel is plain and simple healing. Join Tony Myers, a former atheist who was miraculously healed of terminal ALS, and now a dynamic healing evangelist, in Zane Pierre, a former Pentecostal, who proved the dynamics of the Spirit and healing through experimental research, and now a Christ pneumatologist, as they unite to bring you into experiencing plain and simple healing. If you are struggling to see the results in healing for yourself and healing for others, this broadcast is for you.
All right. And we are here.
we hear you.
We are back once again, the miraculous gospel of healing, with myself, Tony Erfuego Myers. I'm the BAM.
And boom, Zane Fuego Pierre in the house.
Are you two brothers? You have the same last name.
We are brothers. Don't let the blue hair fool you. We are brothers.
Don't let the accent fool you either.
Amen.
We're still brothers. All right. Today, many of you, when we talk about the topic, well, that should be self-evident, the definition for the word healing. It's not quite as self-evident because, yes, it should be glaring us in the eyes, but because of Constantine's religion,
yes, sir.
We're not looking at to be what the true definition is.
That's so true. That's so true.
So many people healing, and they would just simply say, well, you know, if you have something, all the symptoms of it go, then that's healing. I'm trying to stir people up and then going to let Zane talk first.
Right.
And then I'll come along. But there's much more to the definition of that word than simply symptoms not being there.
Yeah.
Is that a fair way to say it? So, Zane, go ahead.
Firstly, I think we should actually talk about what most people think about healing with regards to the symptoms not being there, how they get healing, right? Because of the same Constantinian perspectives that have been taught, which is based and rooted on the idea of the pursuit of validating yourself before God for everything. Healing, unfortunately, has fallen into that category. And so most believers listening to us think that healing is something you qualify yourself for, right? It means that you have to live right, you need to do the right things, you need to say the right things, you have to keep the rules, don't go to certain places, don't watch this movie, you can't drink a beer, you can't touch this, you can't touch that. Unfortunately, you're doing the very opposite of what brings the healing.
You're bringing death.
You're bringing death, because this is why Paul speaks about the fact that the law validates death. Because the law is what is basically saying what you are doing and what you should not do to keep life from flowing. And when you actually start to follow these things, what you're doing is self-condemning yourself. And it is self-condemnation that brought the problem outside of the God. God didn't condemn man. All God did was announce what he was reaping by the law of sowing and reaping. That's why God didn't come out and say, I curse the ground. He said the ground is cursed because of you.
Right.
God didn't say that I now do this. He said, you are cursed because of this.
Right.
You are cursed with this. And that's because
of this, you shall experience pain during childbirth.
You will, exactly. These were announcements, not pronouncements, not a pronouncement upon it. It was an announcement of what you are now going to experience.
Let me use a word a lot of people understand. It was not a penal judgment, folks.
Exactly. It was exactly. Now, because of this, Holy Brother Tony just used the word penal judgment. Because of this, you have attributed the penal substitution and penal judgment perspective to Jesus on the cross. So most of you think that what happened on the cross was penal substitution, when really, from the author's perspective, Jesus was reaping what you were supposed to reap for you so that you don't have to reap it. Because the law of the garden is that you could only reap what you sow once. Now, because of this perspective, you are trying to qualify yourself for the healing, which is driving more death into your situation. The second thing in particular that believers are stuck with is, because you believe God is out in heaven, you believe the healing has to come to you. And so you're begging God in heaven to please heal you. And unknowingly, because the gospel message is Christ in you and you place Christ outside of you, you are death asking for life. So the more you plead, the more you die. Because the more you plead to the life outside of you, every time you plead, you are confirming that you are death.
And
life
not only
exists
that,
outside of you.
but you are matter trying to change matter.
Exactly. That's it. That's the next facet of the same thing. Because if you do not believe that the life is inside of you, then you do not believe that you are what that life is. And if that is spirit, then you are identifying with this. And you are, as Holy Brother Tony just put it, you are matter trying to move matter, when all of creation shows frequency is moving matter. And therefore, frequency is the expression or the proof of the presence of a spirit. So you're suffering.
See, you just got a whole bunch of people freaking out now because you use that word frequency. So let me try to soften the blow just a bit. What is frequency? It's energy. You can have low level frequencies. You can have high level frequencies.
Yeah.
And guess what? A negative, and here we go, something we talked about last week, right?
Right.
Everything produces after its own kind, right? So if you take something negative, it can only produce what? Negative.
Yes.
That's all it can produce.
Yeah.
But yet you want to take a negative thing, such as a symptom, and try to get rid of it, which is negative. A negative, a -1 plus -1 will never equal +2.
Right.
You will never change a minus to a positive. So you're looking for the positive, which is healing, but you're decreeing a negative.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go here, but that's where we went.
It's good.
So when you are there trying to get a symptom to leave, then what are you doing? You are matter trying to move matter. You're not frequency, you are not energy, you are not spirit, which that's what changes matter.
You are thinking through the title that was given to man outside of the garden, which is dust. Here's a factor. Here's a factor to take into consideration. The man outside of the garden is aware of dust. He's not aware of Yahweh. He's not aware of spirit. He's aware of the dust. That man is called darkness. That means that technically, if he is darkness and all creation was made in light, and that light is energy and is spirit, you are technically behaving as though you have zero energy. And so you want the results of energy whilst you're identifying with something that is not really energy. You're functioning from dust.
And let me provoke. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And what Holy Brother Tony is actually saying here now is you cannot want the results of light and life if you are not pretty much embracing the fullness of light and life. Light and life is not sick. So every time you say you're confirming it. You're reproducing after what you really feel. You might be saying light and life with your mouth, but in your heart, you're identifying with the dust. That has to dramatically change for you to begin to see the results of a different spirit.
And I want to provoke people. And so this is why I'm going to challenge. Show me one time in the Gospels that Jesus says, is your pain gone? Do you still have pain?
Yeah, that's true, bro.
Broken bone, be healed. Broken bone mend itself. When does Jesus talk to the symptoms? And I know where that's coming from. That's coming from talk to the mountains. Look at Jesus. He doesn't do that. What does he do? Go wash your eyes in the fountain.
Take up your bed and walk.
Pick up your bed and walk. Go to the temple. The majority of time, that's just like in all of my healings, every one of them, including this last one. The action comes from the belief. I'm healed, therefore I can do. The problem is most people look at it as an act of faith, which implies action to get healed. And we wonder why nothing happens. Meanwhile, we're not even looking for the improvement. What we're looking for is the symptom, and what you look at is what you feed. That's what you give your energy to. So if you're looking to see if a symptom is there, what are you feeding? The symptom.
Yeah, you're
I
giving
wanted
life
to
to
add
it.
that. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, you're giving life to it. And so what even when what you see what Jesus is doing, Jesus is speaking to you from the perspective that life is everything is all right with you. Get up and walk. Because faith is, and probably this is actually something that we need to kind of connect for believers. Faith is not imagination. In the scriptures, it's the same thing as hear and obey. So if an obedience here is not obedience because you're trying to get validation, you get up because you're healed. Because that is the reality of life. If the reality of life is that, then you take action on that. So every time we focus on, even when I'm training people, it's important. It's an important point that I have to make to believers, really, for them to realize that if you want to get the results of the spirit of life, then you have to be aware of what the spirit of life is doing. You cannot be aware of the opposite. The moment you become aware of the opposite, you just change spirit. You just move from the spirit of life, and you just start a step. Just switch back to death. Why? Because in our culture, we are taught thoughts are things that you can just gather. And the more thoughts you gather, the more knowledgeable you are. When in the scriptural perspective, the more thoughts you gather, thoughts are reproductions of a spirit. And therefore, if you're gathering thoughts, technically, you are changing identity by the minute. You're changing spirit by the minute. And if you want healing, then you have to stay within the thoughts of life. And therefore, life does not reproduce the thought of a symptom. It reproduces according to its definition. If you go back to the first mention of life in the scriptures, it means it is defined as the ability to move and to reproduce life self-existently, which is reproduce life on your own, self-determiningly, which means you have to be focused on the movement and the reproduction of life. What the definition says is that is what you focus on. You do not focus on the lack of movement, because the lack of movement is the thought of death. And usually, when people start to focus on the thoughts of what the movement is, and you have more movement and you have more reproduction of life, they are healed. Because you're taught, as I said, because you're taught that healing is something that is coming from outside, you're living in death without professing it. And so it is natural for you to be focusing on the symptoms. And because you're taught that healing is something that you have to qualify yourself for, you're living in debt, which means you're trying to qualify yourself for life. And if you're trying to qualify yourself for life, you could only be death trying to qualify itself, because the life is not in you. So it's natural for you to be focused on the symptoms. If we had to define...
So not only are you focused on the symptoms, but what are you using as evidence? Your physical senses.
Right.
And that's, once again, I feel. So you feel pain with your physical senses. So what are you doing? Now you're saying the pain is greater than the Holy Spirit in you.
Amen. Indeed.
You're saying this is the truth, and the Holy Spirit who's in me speaking only life.
Right.
Which one's a liar? But the problem is we use our physical senses, and then we determine we're not healed.
And I think that is connected to two things in Western culture. Western culture has the Western Christian community, Christian culture. They have taught that the body is independent of the spirit.
Right.
That's number one.
And that the body is not redeemed. God redeemed everything.
Except the body.
Right. To most people.
Yeah.
But then look at this, and this is as a pure grace teacher, I love
Right.
this verse, and that is, as he is, so are we now in this world. Does Jesus have his redeemed body? Somebody, please say no, and I can take my sledgehammer to you.
Yeah. And I'll
He
even add,
has his redeemed body. Every part of us was fully redeemed.
and I'll even take it further than that. If he resurrected with the physical body and had them touch it and ascended with it, and the apostle Paul says that he's a life-giving spirit, are you saying that he's a liar? Or is the body no falls under the category of spirit? Somebody lying, and it ain't Paul.
This is where Constantine's Christianity has it all wrong.
Yeah.
Romans 8:11 says it right there.
And we could even ask the question here. If before Christ you use your body to determine what is true, why do you think that when you come into Christ, which requires mind renewal, that you should still use the same body to tell you what is true? If that was your norm before, and you had to change your mindset and come into a lifestyle of spirit, how are you using the same reference point to determine what is true? I hope this is not passing over to everybody's head. I hope you're not passing over your head. But if you're using that, if you use the body before you came into Christ to determine what was true, and you're using the body after, you're not functioning from a mind from a renewed mind, are you?
Let's look at it this way. If we think, and I need to clarify this, religion and the world are one and the same.
One and the same.
There's no difference. So when I say the world, I mean the religious people as well.
Yeah.
All they do is carry a different flavor, and that's it.
And they're more militarized.
Yes. But so guess what? If we're using the same language and we're viewing things the same way as the world, then how is that right?
No change. No mind
There's
renewal.
been no change then. We're thinking just like the world.
Yeah. You conform to them.
Yes. And it says, do not be conformed to the world. But yet, if we view sickness as normal, are we conforming to the world? Yes. If we are pointing out our symptoms and not pointing out where the life is, are we conformed to the world? Yes.
Here's one. If you are agreeing with what the doctor said, are you conformed to the world? You conform to the world.
You're conformed to the world.
If what he's saying is your truth and he is in the world, then you conform to the world.
Can't be no clearer than that. If you're saying the same thing as what they're saying, then why is it surprising? Yeah. It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be at all.
We have really covered a lot.
So let's speak about then what we define healing to be, since we then identify what the common perspective amongst the denominational community, the common perspective that has been promoted. Now let's give them some ideas to what we see healing to be. Yeah?
In one word, life.
Life. I would even say that, to add to that, that healing is a reproduction after your own kind.
Yes.
So which means if you really want healing, you need to choose what you're identifying as to be able to reproduce that after your own kind. And if you're identifying with Christ in you, which is life, then healing is no more than you reproducing life after your own kind. It comes from the inside out. This is like, here's a simple example. Most of us have plants in our house, in our homes, and the plant has a saucer and the pot in the saucer. And at the bottom of the pot, there are holes for the water. Yeah? Healing is like pouring water and the water coming out from the holes at the bottom. And the point of the water is you thinking thoughts of life. And it starts to flow and fill the pot and fill the saucer.
Love it. Simple
like that. Or, here's another example. For those of you who fear the word frequency. You know, have you ever see those videos on YouTube, bro, where they take sediments, put it on a cloth, and then turn on a bass speaker underneath it, and then the sediments starts to create a shape. So what they're trying to show you is that the sound is actually has a frequency that is actually that is producing a shape in the atmosphere, and you can see the shape by the dust taking the form of that. Right? Healing, the vibration would be the thoughts of life, and the dust is your body taking shape according to your thoughts.
Yep.
Real simple. You have to reproduce that after your own kind. And if you're not reproducing it, then you need somebody who is reproducing it to give it to you from the spirit inside of them. That's the simplest definition. Life, as Holy Brother Tony just said. Just life. You need to change your thought patterns. And that includes what you're using to determine what is true.
And let me tell y'all this, and I say that, I'm the poster child for what not to do, but I have in a lot of ways advanced from that. But the one thing that I did not do, if I would have looked at my body at that time, I would have died again and stayed dead.
You wouldn't be here right now?
I would not be here now.
No.
I did not look at my body the way it was. And that, that's something the Holy Spirit had taught me a long time ago. That was something that became so ingrained in me, which is why, more than likely, when they were trying to put something foreign from the outside world into my body, I was resisting them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is also why, even though I don't remember saying it or doing it, I was bound and determined, according to people, to get up and walk out, because that was what was in me. I just want to end it with that, is you cannot go by what you see. That is certain death.
Certain death. Just recently in one of my master classes, I actually found that this was a very good example. An ambassador. An ambassador is somebody who is in a foreign land, not moved by the state of the country that he's serving. He lives in the reality of the country that he comes from.
Yep.
That's exactly what we do, bro. We live according to the new to the kingdom, New Jerusalem, and the words, the policies, the standard of the New Jerusalem. And we do not allow what we see around us to tell us what the truth is. What is from that city is what the truth is. And that city is life. What is from Yeshua is what the truth is. And so we are like ambassadors. And Paul says that we are ambassadors of Christ.
Right.
And that is what we do. Just like an ambassador in a country. You could watch destruction in the country, and that has nothing to do with you. That's not your business. Your business is to actually make sure that the policies of your country are established here. And therefore, you don't accept that as truth. You execute and you maintain what the policy says. And you bring change to what is here. Which means, technically, you're treating the source of the country of your origin and their policies as your truth. And the country that you're serving, they are the adjustable side that the truth of your country is going to be installed. Is going to actually adopt to or adapt to. And if you treat it like that, then you'll understand exactly what we're referring to here in a simple and more relatable. You're an ambassador, and ambassadors are not occupied with using anything around them to tell them what the truth is.
And in fact, the ambassador, where the embassy is, that is the ground
of the country that they come from.
Of the country.
Yeah. And within that space, whilst the whole country doing something different, within that space, they govern it just like the country that they come from.
Yep.
Which means if you are a believer in practical application, your home shouldn't be saying the same thing that outside of your home saying.
Yep.
That's a good point, bro.
So take that, ponder it, chew on it, and don't let it go. These truths are already inside of each and every one of us. We just have to let them out.
Everybody listening to us, every time we say these things, 100%, I guarantee that it's striking a chord with something inside it. Either it is inspiring or it get you vexed. Anyway, it's striking a chord. It's striking a chord because it's inside you already.
And most of the time, if it gets somebody upset, why does it tick someone off? Because it's truth, and they recognize it's truth, but it takes away their validation.
Yeah, invalidating your library.
Yes. And there's nothing that provokes someone more than that. With that, we know you've learned something. We've covered a lot of ground. Be blessed
Be healed.
and be a blessing. Where's your boom?
Boom.
And bam.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an inspiring and thought-provoking episode, delving into the core of healing and its profound connection to the gospel. If you've ever wondered about the true essence of healing, you're not alone. Tony Myers and Zane Pierre have shared their powerful insights on how understanding one fundamental principle transformed their lives. It's clear from our conversation that healing isn't about being the most theological or living a sinless life, nor is it about adhering to a strict set of laws. So as we wrap up today's episode, I encourage you to reflect on the insights shared by our incredible hosts. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, be blessed, be healed, and be a blessing.